competition breeds improvement. Fortnite has been killing it lately in terms of player numbers, new updates and transparency. On the flip side, Fortnite's main competition, Playerunknown's Battlegrounds, hasn't been moving much at all. Until yesterday, when PUBG Corp released a 2018 roadmap which lays out their update plan for the coming year. There is some very interesting stuff ahead. Will it be enough though to drag lost players back to the game? First up, the devs say that they want to commit to a major content delivery cycle, as they called it, every 2 months, starting with a big update this month. These updates will bring new content, perhaps vehicles, weapons and new maps. More on that soon. And then in between, there'll still be regular updates that will focus on small improvements and bug fixes. Alongside that, they're going to be opening up an experimental test server so that players can give feedback on new content even sooner than ever before. But I wonder, is that going to be another download on Steam? Surely it can't be the main game, test server and then experimental test server. 2 test servers for one game is a bit much for my liking, so I hope that the experimental server is bundled into the current test version somehow. Check this out, they showed us an example here of how they're trying to slowly improve the visual design of the game. And this building example, yeah, it does look better, but I'd argue most players don't really care and really wouldn't see much of a difference in that building design, if I'm honest. In terms of brand new content, next month we'll see us getting something very interesting, a brand new map. Now, you might not be that excited for a new map in PUBG after Miramar was released, the desert map. I think most people would agree that it just isn't that good and it doesn't play very well as a BR map. However, the difference with this new map is that it's a 4x4 island, so it's intentionally really small to give you a fast-paced experience, which is one of the things that Battlegrounds really doesn't have going for it right now. I believe the map on Fortnite is 5x5, so it will be similar in size to that, and assuming it's got the same player count of 100, it would surely be mad if it didn't. Please PUBG, keep it at 100, then you're definitely going to get more fights and more action, so I'm really interested to see how this plays. Because it's much smaller, does that mean that we're going to get more loot, or are the circles going to move much faster? I think they should. My one big concern though is lag. With 100 players dropping in a relatively small area, could that cause some lag issues? We know that Battlegrounds isn't perfect and it's had a big problem with lag in the past and in the current build of the game. FPS drops, low tick rates, bad netcode, but perhaps the smaller map size could help offset some of that. We'll see. If I could play games of Battlegrounds and have the good elements, so the gunplay, teamwork, but with much more frequent engagements and faster games, I'm all for it. Maybe this map can do that for me. The devs are also working on another 8x8 map, which is going to be tested early on via the experimental test server, which I think is a good thing because after Miramar released, I think to get the best possible maps, it makes far more sense to get them tested very early on when they're in early stages, so any changes can be made. Also, welcome to the new Emotes system. It's not out yet, but it's currently in testing on the test server, and looking at how popular the emote system is on Fortnite, I'm really not surprised that we've got one here. Although in Fortnite you can have really amusing ones that are interesting and people actually want to buy them, whereas Battlegrounds, because it's a much more realistic game, the emotes are a bit less exciting. I don't think there's much appeal here, to be honest with you. Nonetheless, I guess it is an addition to the game, so as long as they keep adding new ones that you can get, no doubt some people will buy them down the line. New game modes were also mentioned in the post, but sadly no more details on what they could be or how long we'll have to wait to see them. I think one thing that Fortnite does well though is that it's constantly throwing in some new game modes, even just short-term fun game modes that aren't always super balanced, but they're a laugh for a few days. And maybe some of them stick. Battlegrounds I think needs more of that. It needs some experimentation and a bit of fun. You can expect new vehicles and new weapons too, which have already been teased in a picture here, and it looks a lot like an SA-58. Interestingly, new weapon attachments are also mentioned, so I'm very interested to see what they can come up with. New weapons and vehicles, yep, great, but sometimes some weapons just aren't as good as others. Same with vehicles. Do you ever see anyone using the MK14, for example? I'd personally like to see some vehicles better on roads and some better off-road to give you perhaps more of a reason to pick certain vehicles and ditch other ones. Just a thought. As well as that, I think they said there was like 37 achievements being added to the game for Steam, and an in-game friends list and squad voice chat in the main menu is being tested alongside further player customization, including parachute and weapon skins. I'm actually surprised that it's taken them this long to bring weapon customization to the game, but I really hope that the skins at least somewhat fit with the design of the game and the art style. H1Z1, for example, had some crazy mad skins that I wasn't a big fan of personally, so skins are fine as long as they fit within the game setting. And speaking of parachuting, that's one area the team have said that they want to improve on to make it more responsive. And when you play Fortnite, you do realise that the parachuting on Battlegrounds can be very clunky at times. Alongside the parachuting controls and animations, they're going to be overhauling the entire third person and first person animation system to make them far smoother and react better to the environment. Interestingly, this apparently will include animations for getting inside vehicles and even changing seats. That could make quick escapes quite frustrating depending on how fast these animations are. The melee system is going to be improved too, and that's probably for the best because the melee system can be quite laggy and very unresponsive at times. Also, what happened to those takedowns that were teased earlier on last year? They looked really cool, but no mention of those as far as I can see. I'd love to see that takedown system in the game. So the game is going to be adding limb and vehicle bullet penetration. That's going to be tested, and this is quite cool. Say for instance you're stood still and somebody shoots your hand with a rifle. In some games that would class as a shot to the arm because that's where the bullet hits, but in reality that bullet would probably go through your arm, assuming it was, say, shot to your side, and then eventually it might hit your chest. The idea is to have a much more detailed damage system where bullets will actually penetrate limbs to deal damage to other body parts that they're covering. I definitely think that they need to work on this based on caliber of bullet though. The same thing goes for vehicles. That could be pretty interesting to see how the vehicle system will work. Now, sound in games can often be overlooked, but in PUBG they've done a lot of work to improve it, especially in vehicles, but they're saying that they're not done just yet and they want to increase the detail of vehicle sounds to make stuff like suspension sounds louder or skidding sounds, and for the sounds to differ depending on the surface that you're driving on. Not only that, but down the line they want players' own sounds to differ depending on the gear that they're carrying. Even different breathing sounds depending on if you're running, aiming down the sight or walking. That's a great level of detail, yes, but arguably not the most important change. I don't really see how that's going to improve or affect gameplay. And on top of everything that I've just mentioned, new content and improvements to the game, PUBG Corp say that they understand that the core stability of the game, including anti-cheat, is very important, and they promise to continue working on this across the course of the year. And they definitely have improved it over the past year, I have to say, but it's still got a long way to go and you still come up against cheaters quite frequently. Esports, of course, was mentioned here, and it's a bit of a push for Bluehole as they say that they're committed to pushing the game forward as an esport and alongside that improving the spectator mode to make it a better experience when watching games. I personally don't think that Battlegrounds at the moment is ready for esports at all, and I think that they understand that it's not, but it does seem like it's a big focus for the dev team. With all of that in mind, a new patch did just hit the test server with some changes, and it includes some of the things that we've already talked about and shown here, like achievements, friends lists and the emote system, but also some other changes too. Apparently there are some real improvements to optimization in this test patch. The update notes say that they've improved the real-time response by reducing input lag as well as other optimizations to the GPU. Reducing input lag, always great for a first-person shooter. You want as little as possible in the base engine. One change that I'm not sure I like though is the change to the gun scope view to be more realistic. They've expanded the field of view through the scope but added a parallax effect when moving weapons fast and added colour, vignetting and chromatic aberration to the edges of scopes. Now, I don't really think the game needed that at all, but I guess we've got it now. Maybe it's a balancing thing for the ACOG. I just wish that I could turn all those graphical effects off. I have to admit though that the centre part of the ACOG and the 8x scope seem much sharper and clearer now, which of course is a good thing. And finally, in an effort to improve the gameplay on Miramar, PUBG Corp have created some holes in the floors of higher level buildings to allow players to move between levels easier. It's a small change, and for me personally that's not going to change the experience of that map whatsoever. It needs a massive overhaul, shrinking down, and the towns need to all come much closer together with less enterable buildings. Just my 2 cents on the matter, of course. And that's all for today, guys. Do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Are you still playing PUBG? Have you gone across to Fortnite and are addicted to that now? How do you think the game can improve and bring the players that it's lost back to the table? If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.